Russland verstärkt seine Angriffe auf die Ukraine. Wie soll das angegriffene Land am besten unterstützt werden? Und welche Rolle spielen die USA dabei? Fragen dazu an den amerikanischen Botschafter bei der NATO, Matthew Whitaker. Good evening, Mr. Ambassador.
Good to be with you.
You just visited war-torn Ukraine 2 weeks ago. What impressions did you come back with?
Several things impressed me. First of all, the resilience of the Ukrainian people and their desire to defend their country and their freedoms. That was the first thing that struck me. Second, their innovation and investment in new capabilities, whether it's drones and how those are used on the battlefield, other autonomous vehicles, but just their innovation and their creativity, together with really their willingness to experiment. It's a battle lab in real time, and so they're willing to experiment, try things out, see what works, see what doesn't work, change things as they once worked and didn't work any longer. And they're really innovative, and it's an inspiration, I really think, for all of NATO to learn the lessons, to understand how they're improving their situation and their strategic opportunities on the battlefield. And so those were at least a couple things that really impressed me.
Your takeaway, however, was this war has been going on far too long. Who do you see carrying more responsibility for ending the war, the Ukrainian or the Russian side?
Well, the Ukrainians have been willing to resolve, to enter into a ceasefire and ultimately negotiate a peace. And so, if we're blaming folks and who's responsible, it's been the Russians that are unwilling to come to the table and enter into a ceasefire and negotiate a peace. And so, President Trump has been trying to create the circumstances to bring Russia to the table, whether that's his recent energy sanctions. There are more things that obviously the Senate is considering, a big sanctions package that the president spoke over the weekend about positively. And so there's, right now, the way I see it is that the Ukrainians are waiting at the table and the Russians need to get there. And President Trump's going to continue to use leverage and look for opportunities to bring them to the table to negotiate.
You mentioned that President Trump seems to get more and more frustrated with President Putin's course of seemingly offering negotiations on one side, but then continuing with his aggression against Ukraine. This weekend, you also said that the president signaled more willingness for further sanctions. Is the US now currently trying to increase the pressure more than before on Putin to force real negotiations?
Yeah, well, first, President Trump is frustrated with Vladimir Putin, that every time that they talk, there seems to be a willingness to maybe enter into a ceasefire, negotiate a peace, and then more bombs rain down on Ukrainian cities and civilians. Obviously, President Trump is looking for the right combination to put the pressure on the Russians to come to the table and enter into a ceasefire and ultimately negotiate a peace. But the pressure needs to be sustained, and I think that's what you're seeing. President Trump is sustaining the pressure. We have sanctions in place. We expect our European allies, including Germany, to come along with us and to use the same leverage, because when we all act together, that's when we're the strongest.
You also expect then more aggressive stances from Europe against Russia, if I read you correctly. What do you exactly have in mind?
Well, the one thing I've been calling for, and President Trump has been calling for, is Europe to finally end buying Russian oil and gas. There are still countries that are using and buying Russian oil and gas. There are opportunities to expand pipelines, to use United States liquefied natural gas, for example, to buy our oil. And so those are the kinds of things we're looking for our European allies to do, because there's no reason we should fund the Russian war machine, and every euro that goes into buying Russian oil and gas is a dollar or a euro that is going into supporting the war machine.
Financial assistance is needed for Ukraine. That's one aspect. Another crucial one is weapons, ammunition, gear. How much can Ukraine expect to depend on US assistance and reliable deliveries in this area?
Well, we're delivering, to the logistics hub in Poland continually. We're expecting our European allies through the prioritized Ukraine requirements list to pay for those critically needed munitions and equipment. And right now, the program is running well. There's been billions of dollars that have gone in to Ukraine to support their defense. Most importantly, every single Pearl package includes air defense, PAC-3 missiles, air defense systems that are so crucial to their defense and their protection of their citizens. So, right now, the NATO allies are all working together very well, and Europe and Canada are buying large amounts and large quantities of U.S. munitions, but it points to the challenges that we all face, and that is we need to increase our defense industrial base. We need to increase productions on both sides of the Atlantic and make sure that we can not only address the current needs in Ukraine, but ultimately address our own needs to defend ourselves and have strength that is going to ultimately ensure a peaceful Europe and a peaceful continent.
But the US position then remains, we only deliver weapons to the Ukraine if Europe pays for them?
President Trump was clear in July when I was with him in the Oval Office, together with Secretary General Mark Rutte, that the United States expects Europe to pay for this war if we're going to provide equipment and munitions. U.S. is making them available, and Europe is purchasing them, and that's President Trump was very clear about that this summer, and right now that program is working very successfully, and Ukraine needs it. And the program is providing what they need.
European NATO members see themselves already in a hybrid war with Russia and are feeling an acute threat there, especially in the Baltics. At the same time, they see the US focusing on Gaza, on the conflict with China, now on Venezuela. How steadfast is US commitment to its European NATO allies?
Well, the US is committed to NATO, and we just expect our NATO allies to equalize with the United States, to step up, invest in their own defense. And at the same time, the United States is going to have to address all the threats that we face, whether it's in our own hemisphere or whether it's in the Pacific. And so, we've been very clear in our conversations with our allies in NATO that we need them as strong as we are. And if we're all strong together, that will allow us to protect our way of life, to protect every inch of NATO territory, and ultimately guarantee the peace that has been really an advantage of being a member of NATO for the last 76 years.
So in conclusion, where are we on a path to an end of the fighting in Ukraine?
Well, I think, the wars do end. This war is going longer, I think, than a lot of people expected. But at the same time, as long as we are steadfast as an alliance at NATO, and as long as Europe continues to provide the critical munitions and support for Ukraine, and the United States continues to enable that, I think the pressure is going to continue to mount both on the Russians on the battlefield, and most importantly, through the sanctions that we've implemented on the Russian economy. And that's what's going to bring ultimately Vladimir Putin to the table to enter into a ceasefire and ultimately negotiate a peace.
Ambassador Whitaker, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Du hast das Video bis zu Ende geschaut? Dann kannst du auch ein Abo dalassen.